So hello everybody and welcome. I am so excited to be bringing this webinar to you today, and we're going to be talking about helping kids with mental health issues. We're going to be covering lots of different topics with regards to mental health, all the things that are going on that we're seeing our kids expressing at the moment. We're going to be looking at anxiety and self-harming and lots of different areas, and also we're going to be giving you some great tools on how you can not only help your kids but you can help yourself. But I want to introduce the two ladies that are going to be sharing this time with me. So first of all, we'll start with Sonja. Sonja.
Hi everyone. Hi.
Okay. Sonja, you are a EFT, matrix reimprinting, matrix birth reimprinting practitioner. You also written some beautiful articles. You're a speaker, educator, and an all-round beautiful person.
Oh, Sharon, it's so lovely coming from you. Thank you.
You're very
yeah.
Brilliant.
And passionate about health and well-being.
Absolutely, one of the most passionate people that I know. And also Gaylene Hansen, who's with us today, who is a matrix reimprinting, matrix birth reimprinting practitioner. You also do meta health, and
Yes.
but your daytime job is a neonatal nurse working with all the beautiful premature babies. So you're going to be sharing some great knowledge with us about the handling of these babies and what babies need. But also you're an ex-midwife, so you're everything to do. You've experienced just so much of the birthing process and what happens before and what happens afterwards. So I'm really excited that you've joined us today as well. So welcome, Gaylene.
Thank you.
Cool. So we're gonna just start with some basic questions, and then we'll tell you a little bit about what EFT matrix reimprinting is a little bit later on. Some of you guys may be a little bit triggered by some of the subjects we're going to be talking about. So a really good thing, if you don't know EFT at all, is just find a place just here on your chest, just to tap, if that feels comfortable to you. And that just helps to get the energy moving. Okay. So, okay, so you helping Jules? Yeah, fab. So that just helps to get the energy moving, and it's always good. There's some finger points here that you can tap on here, because some of the subjects can be triggering to people, especially if you've experienced this level of anxiety in yourself or in your children. So I'm going to start with let's talk to Sonja about your wonderful article that you've written about anxiety. There you go, putting it straight on the spot there. So
oh my.
3 causes of anxiety. So maybe even, let's just take it back to what anxiety is.
Yes. So just to briefly describe it, anxiety is a fear of the future, or a perceived fear of the future based on a threat or an experience where you think something bad is going to happen. So whilst there is no actual threat to life, often the brain is in a state of, I think something bad is going to happen to me, or I think something is potentially going to go wrong. So it's called hypervigilance. So the brain is just trying to keep you in survival because of something that's happened in your past where maybe your survival was threatened. And the survival could be literal or metaphorical. So it could be that it was just a perceived threat, or it was a literal threat, such as an earthquake or a car accident, or it just could be that, same again, car swerved, but nothing really happened. But at that moment, and I have worked on this with clients where in that moment you thought you were going to die. So that's what anxiety is, and meta-medicine analysis says that it's the fear of the future, is it?
You're okay.
It says my internet's unstable, isn't it? Okay, I'm just going to make sure that that's okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Carry on as we were. Are we still okay?
Yeah, you're still okay. You're back now.
Okay. Good.
Okay, so we're talking really about how anxiety can be related to either our time in utero or our birth experience. Now, I didn't just realize I didn't actually introduce myself. My name's Sharon King, and and I'm the author of the book Heal Your Birth, Heal Your Life, but I'm also the creator of the Matrix Birth Reimprinting technique. So my speciality is going back to that early time, that time in the womb where, you know, our foundations, as I call it, how we perceive the world. And that is how we perceive the world is actually through our mother's interpretation of what's going on in the world. So we get programmed from a very early stage about how the outside world's going to be, and then we have our own experience when we go through our birth process, and then obviously as the days, the months, the years after birth, then that all adds into that pot, if you like, of experience, which backs up those feelings that we felt in the womb. So that's the area that would be really great to talk a little bit about the experiences. And, you know, I've certainly had a lot of experiences of taking people back into the womb and then realizing that actually their feelings that they feel today, the anxiety they feel today, doesn't actually belong to them. It actually started when they're in utero. So that environment that they were in, let's just say mum was in a relationship that wasn't, you know, an abusive relationship, let's just say, or even mum just has her own anxieties and worries that were programmed from her grandmother when she was inside the womb, sorry, her mother when she was inside the womb. So this all creates the person that we're going to be. So right from early on, right from conception, we have a form of consciousness. We have awareness of the world around us. We don't have conscious memory, but we have a consciousness, and everything that happens to us from that moment onwards is recorded in our subconscious. And so many people are still so unaware that babies are conscious beings, that they're taking on the world around them, they're learning about their world, they're learning about themselves while they're either in the womb or they're at birth. So Gaylene, can I come to you, and can you talk to us a little bit about premature babies, on how they perceive the world? Because I'm guessing, you know, I having worked with some clients that are premature babies, that their perception of the world is going to be slightly different to babies that have, you know, come straight into the world and they have a lovely, great birth experience and bonding experience with mum. That's going to be very, very different to what happens with premature babies. So could you speak a little bit about that, and how in your hospital, I mean, I know that there in New Zealand, your birthing practices are probably still very, very good. You have a lot more home births, for instance, than we do in this side of the world. And that to me, looking in from the outside, there seems to be a lot more awareness around how conscious babies are. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, babies' consciousness, I think that still is, I work with premature babies, so as little as 23 weekers, and they are very aware of what's going on around them. They respond, okay, 23 weekers a lot less than as babies as they get a bit older. In an ideal world, they would still be in utero, but they act as they would if when they're in utero, except they have these external, they have so much external stuff going on for them. They don't know, well, any baby doesn't know that they're separated from mum. A premature baby has been in utero growing, and especially when it's really sudden. You know, some of them, sometimes they haven't had any stress, or those little ones actually struggle more sometimes than the ones that have had a little bit of stress, or breathing wise. If they've had a lot of stress, that's different, you know, when they're in utero. So they are very aware of what's going on around them. I can give you some examples, if you like, of just things that little ones have done. I'll never forget, this is about 34 weekers, a little twin, when I put one twin in the incubator with her twin sister, and she smiled when her twin sister joined her. I'd like to add, they were both monitored and they were both watched at all this time. But two colleagues saw it and they said, she smiled. And I thought, of course, yes, she did. Her twin joined her. The connection of, when I'm talking about twins, another example is when there was little twins, sometimes they're a bit squirmy. It's almost like they need to be a little bit bigger. They're quite compact in their little tummies and stuff, and they're squirmy. And they were each in their own cots. When one started squirming, and then especially identical twins, the other one's responding, the same as they would in utero. In this particular case, I put my hand on one of them and my hand on the other one. And I felt the connection, an energetic connection going between the two of these little ones. And each of them were calming. You know, they were connecting with one another. I got lots of stories, different things like this. They see them responding with their mother, their father, the same in a more immature sort of a way. But when mum's there or dad's there or even a sibling's there, they know those sounds. They know the sounds that they have experienced in utero. Okay, they've heard them within the uterus, but they know them and they respond to their mum, their father. Even premature babies know. If they're feeling at all like anxious, you'll see them put their hands up like this. They'll stretch out, and you think, I think it's a great thing for anybody to do when we're feeling a little stressed. It's put your hands up. Learn from premature babies. What do we think it's telling us? You know, you're aware to back off. That was a little bit much for them at that time. They were sensing their environments.
So that's very clear communication, isn't it? And
very clear communication.
But you have to be present in yourself to notice that communication.
Yes.
You know, if you're in your head thinking about, oh, I've got to do this and I've got to do that, you're going to miss that asking you to just back off a little bit. And while you're talking about twins, Gaylene, this just reminds me of that story where the mum's pregnant with two twins, and the guys that were doing the scans could actually see that there was a leak coming from the umbilical cord of one of the other twins, and was actually saying that they didn't think that this twin was going to survive and that there was a good chance that mum was going to lose this twin. And as they were watching on the screen and they'd pointed out this leak, the other twin actually moved itself in position and plugged the leak and stayed like that for weeks, so that baby survived. You know, it's a well-known article. You can you know, Google it and find it on you know, on the internet. So
people think they don't hear.
I know.
I mean, someone said to me, babies don't remember birth. And I'm thinking, what? You know, we've experienced that. We'll talk about matrix later on, but each of us has experienced this of, yes, we do. In our subconscious brain, we do remember it. We remember our time in utero. The number of the clients, when we work with clients, that the fearful things, or we tend to have clients who have had traumatic times, and so we're going back to look at those, but their fears or their confusion or their anger, their anxiousness, they do feel that. And when we work with that, and they get to say and do what they wanted to say and do, how that changes in utero and the experience they have. And it's, yeah,
absolutely. So each and every one of us, as a baby and as a child and even as an adult, we need to know that we are seen, that we're heard, that we are felt, and we are understood. And if we don't feel like any of those is happening, then that is a threat to our survival. That makes us feel isolated, alone, and, you know, as we know, the thing about trauma is that, you know, you've got no strategy to deal with this. And add on to that the actual fact that babies are pretty helpless. There's not a lot that they can do to actually help themselves. Then they need constant reassurance as well. They need to know, you know, even when they're in the womb, so many women that I work with who are pregnant, who are very, very stressed, and they're very, very busy, and I just say to them, have you spoken to your baby today? And it's like, well, no, the baby's not here yet. Yes, it is. It's here in the womb. Make some time, because how are you going to make time for your baby when it is physically here if you can't make time for it while it's in your womb?
To spake that time, to tune into your baby, to just to talk to them. You know, we know that babies respond to music after they're born, of things that are on television or the music. You know, there's been studies of this that have been done. You know, it's like also how with twins, we were talking about twins, and if they've lost their twin, you know, that might be in utero or that might be at birth. I can remember a little baby who twin died at birth, and his mouth and his tongue was like so often just fixed to the roof of his mouth. Like, what's he going through? You know, to be sensitive to this little, well, of course we were sensitive to this, but you know, they witnessed this close at hand, the grief, the fear, the lonely, the vulnerability. I think, so important.
And one of the case studies that I've actually mentioned in my book, talking about loss of twins, is even as early as the first trimester. I was so shocked when I was writing my book, getting research for my book, at finding out just how many pregnancies actually start off as twins. And then one of the babies kind of drops away. But people intuitively know. And one of the stories that I love in my book is working with a guy on his weight issues. He cannot lose weight. And he had previously had a hypnosis session that had taken him back to being in utero. And there was this big black empty space in the womb. And he was so traumatized by what that actually meant that, you know, the guy brought him straight out of hypnosis, and he still remembered that hypnosis session, and, you know, years later, you know, it had still been on his mind. So we went back to that time, and, you know, maybe a little time to explain about matrix birth reimprinting now. Matrix reimprinting is what you do is you imagine going back as adult you to help your younger self. So for him, he went back and was working with and helping his 3-month-old in utero baby self process that loss, process the loss of that twin. And after the session, he had this like light bulb moment go on, and he said, oh my God, this is connected to my weight. And I'm going, well, how does that fit? And he said, well, while I'm in utero, he said, when it's mum's birthday, he said, I buy her 2 birthday presents. I buy her 2 birthday cards. I may not always give it to her, but I always buy 2 of everything. He said, and now I realize, he said, that I've been eating for 2 all my life. I have been eating for myself, and I have been eating for my twin. And having that conscious awareness of this is why, not only, and we'll come on to addictions, but not only was he eating for his twin, but he was also trying to replace, with using food, the loss. He was trying to, you know, replace that love that he and his twin had together by using food. So, and as soon as he had the conscious awareness and the fact that we healed the trauma, processed the grief of what happened with the loss, then his weight just started to fall off, because he no longer needed to keep eating for 2 people.
Makes total sense.
Something else was like premature babies, that they really feel and respond to touch the same as any other baby does. They can be quite hypersensitive to loud noises. we do a lot of quiet, gentle, still hands around them. Just even stroking a baby that's premature can be quite stimulating for them.
Yeah.
But those quiet, gentle hands, and that's something I teach parents. I had a sibling with some twins just recently on, and a little 5-year-old just with his hands around this little twin brother. Not his twin brother, but they were twins again.
Yeah.
And had his hands there, just tuning in, and his little brother was just quietly, because his brother, because he knows him, you know. And as we told him, and his daddy told him, he knows you already, you know, the older sibling. So they know the touch, they know the sounds they've heard before. New sounds, they stop and pay attention to them. But sounds they already know, like you could have noisy siblings, and a premature baby, any baby, they know those sounds, so they don't have to stop and attune to those. They know them already. So there's so much learning that has gone on within the uterus. When you have that, we have a happy mum, you know we get these happy hormones that all go flood through to the baby inside, and they have such a foundation for them. And when it's mum's more chronically stressed, all babies will have those different chemicals that are there, and it changes the way their brain develops. The main areas, they develop all the areas, but it changes the emphasis on the areas they're more in a survival response, which is really something we are going to be leading on to with when we talk about addictions and self-harm and ACE scores and those things. Yeah,
mum's in survival. So it's like if you think about it as a they're being preset to actually learn how or to be able to survive in the world they're coming into. So if mum is extremely stressed, then obviously it's a stressful world. So it's like the baseline for that baby, the base programming, if you like, is this level of adrenaline, cortisol, running all the time. If mum's got that going through her body all the time, then that's been passed through the placenta to the baby. And that becomes the normal setting for the baby, the normal foundation setting. So of course that's going to lead on to a child being very anxious, being worried, feeling, hypervigilant, feeling like life is under threat. And having, just done a workshop with Dr. Gabor Mate, he's saying that, all these conditions like the ADHD, the ADD, the defiance disorder, or whatever the new thing that they've got going on, new label that they're giving to these poor kids. When you work with the parents, when you work with the mother, you find out that they were highly stressed when they were pregnant. Then when you add on top of that a really traumatic birth experience, then lack of bonding because mum's unable to connect because she's traumatized, perhaps she's even got PTSD, and the baby's traumatized too. When you're in trauma, you cannot be very present because you're going through your own process. So this is how it's kind of, the whole reason why we wanted to do this webinar is that it's to help people understand that this gets preset very, very early on. But also the great news is that it doesn't have to stay like this. Again, as Dr. Gabor was talking about, he was talking about all of the early times, all the early years, and the foundation of everything is that the brain is still got neuroplasticity. It can create new neurons. It may take longer. My experience with clients is if you've had a foundation of being highly anxious, if you like, which is the norm for that baby, and they've gone through quite a stressful time with birth and maybe a stressful childhood, and it takes quite a long time to reprogram the brain to actually dysregulate the autonomic nervous system and all of that stuff. So having worked with quite a few people also who have been premature babies, and also babies that have been separated from mum at birth that end up bonding with their incubator, all the walls around them, all the strip lights or whatever's going on, there's that level of disassociation. And if you're not you know, connected in that moment after birth, then you're going to go through life finding connection really difficult.
Yeah. I think one of the important things for us where I'm working is that when we can get, even after cesarean section of premature babies or a full-term baby that needs to come to neonatal care, that we can bring in the mum's bed, even after, say, a cesarean section, have mum there straight away. Don't separate the baby from mum wherever we can. We've had where babies born at 35, 36 week, who didn't actually even enter the neonatal unit, because as staff, we will go out to the maternity unit. Our doors go into the maternity unit from our unit. And so we keep babies and mums together as much as possible, and we'll go out so they stay that way. We can bring a mum's bed after a cesarean section in within, as soon as within 3/4 of an hour or something. Normally the dad is there straight away. Where we can get baby onto dad, skin to skin. In the meantime, we can bring the mum's bed in, and we have shifts where the mum's bed is right beside her baby. And some mums stay that way because they're not going to be separated from their baby. And it's bring on the units that can accommodate this. There's some now in Vancouver. They've built rooms so that the person who looks after the mum looks after the baby within the neonatal unit now. And it's so important.
It is so important, and that education is getting out there, and the hospitals are starting to respond, which is wonderful. But I think we will all agree that we have worked with clients who haven't, they're adults now, and they have not had that experience. I worked with a mother the other day who literally she had a C-section, and she did not know whether her baby was alive or dead for 24 hours. She did not know. Nobody came to tell her, and she was so traumatized she couldn't even, she got to the point where she didn't dare ask. And then they handed her this baby, and she was still so shocked by what had happened with her experience of birth that she just kind of looked at it and couldn't even compute that this was her baby. The level of trauma was so high for that lady. So, it makes my heart sing just hearing you talk, Gaylene, about how things are,
Well, not always.
Yeah. Well,
not always.
Not always.
But working towards.
Yeah,
working towards. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we spoke on the previous our previous webinar about, we talked about skin to skin nurturing. So, those listening can find that, get one again and learn about that side. But yeah, I just see so much the response of skin to skin nurturing. And it's something, again, we can go back to with Matrix, isn't it? It's that really precious time when we've looked and cleared past trauma through pregnancy and in utero, and enabling that, and then looking to the future as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Getting that connection back, that connection time we didn't have. I'm just looking here at Connie's comment here, and then we're going to come to Sonja. She said it was generally observed in the maternity hospitals in Belfast, this is in Ireland, in the mid-90s, that newborn babies were soothed by Home and Away, a popular TV program that many mums listen to. So babies are, I think it's around about 4 or 5 months old, they start developing their sense of hearing. So I always say to mum, when you're going to bed at night, play some music, that, the same music every night. So the baby learns that, this is when we go to sleep. This is when mum goes to sleep. This is sleep time. So then when your baby's physically here, you play the same music and the baby goes, this is sleep time. Use the fact that the baby is actually learning in utero, and just show the baby this is the music, for happy music, for playing, or mummy's watching Home and Away or Neighbours or Coronation Street or whatever, because that early programming just has such a really profound effect on us. So Sonja, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the earthquake that happened in Christchurch.
Yes, yeah. It's really timely because I've just moved back here after being away for a long time, and I sort of held on to moving back here. And interestingly, at the time, and this is just worth sharing, at the time I was meant to do my matrix birth reimprinting, my father was ill and I came back to Christchurch unexpectedly. And so I wasn't meant to do that training then. And then when I finally moved back here permanently, I did the matrix birth reimprinting. And in between those two times, we learned that a woman by the name of Professor Gaylene Liberty did a study of 300 in utero babies who were in utero between 2008 and 2011. And they had a previous study that already existed, so they were able to do comparison data. And they have tracked these babies from their in utero experiences into starting school. And what they found, and 300 is a really decent sample size of this study, have found that something like over 70% of these young children who were in utero at the time of these earthquakes are demonstrating the significant levels of anxiety that you would expect to see from a child or even an adult who had lived through the earthquakes as if they'd been alive and, you know, conscious. And we think of consciousness as being after the age of 7 years of age, because based on brain development, we start to become more conscious from 5 onwards. So these children weren't even alive. They were in mother's womb. And that just further supports that understanding and knowledge. That's the raw data that we have to say, actually, you know, what is going on for mum is being obviously experienced energetically and making beliefs and meaning from it, and for the child as well. So the fact that that's here in Christchurch was, when that came out, I was just, thank you, we're not talking crazy stuff here.
Yeah. And you know, it really is all about the beliefs. I wrote a blog for when I was launching my book, and there was 2 guys that were both in utero at the time, I think during the Iraq War, the first Iraq War. And both mothers were giving birth during the bombing, when we were dropping bombs on them, bless them. And it's really interesting because the 2 guys are both totally different, because one feels very safe and comfortable in the world, and the other one kind of has a, you know, hypervigilance, always on, you know, running on a high anxiety. And the difference was that the mother that was giving birth to the adult, now adult, who was completely in trust of Allah. She just knew that that she was safe, that her baby was safe, that Allah was going to protect her. And it didn't matter what was going on around her, she still felt safe. Whereas the other mother was feeling highly anxious and fearful of her own life when she was giving birth, and obviously, you know, as a pregnant mother too. So, you know, and it's just interesting that those 2 guys got together, and, you know, I got to speak to them and got to interview them, and you know, look and just use that as a really good example that, you know, it doesn't matter where we are in the world, it's the perception of what's going on is what's crucially important.
Yeah. That safe and unsafe, that's something that babies are always sensing as well. We all of us are. We're always sensing, am I safe or am I unsafe? And for a baby, when they're born, the sense of smell is huge for them. It's what drives their other senses. It's and can I smell my mother? You know, so it's like to have something around them that's got mum's scent on them, mum's smell. You know, it's these little octopuses have come in and sort of in different places for little neonates to sort of to hold on to. And I like suggesting, mum, put it down your front. You know, get your smell onto that. So when baby's holding on to that. Yeah.
So when, sorry, Gaylene, just coming back to that sense of smell, they've actually done studies where they can actually prove that the baby can recognize their own mother's own mother's breast milk from another mother's breast milk. And, you know, if they put a pad with mum's breast milk on one side and they put a pad with somebody else's breast milk on the other side, they will always turn towards their own mother's smell.
Yes.
And also, while we're talking about breast milk, is like when the babies are born, that vernix that they're covered in, then people need to keep that on the baby, because that contains hormones that stimulate that sense of smell even further, and it stimulates that need to, or that ability to breastfeed. It's, you know, it contains all the hormones. Oxytocin, as we know, is you know, one of the great hormones that we use in birth and bonding, and but we also need it in breastfeeding too. So it's, I think it's such a primal thing, but it's also, I think the baby has that, the mother gets triggered with her sense of smell as well. And it'd be really interesting. I mean, in the What Babies Want DVD, you'll hear Noel Wiley talking about when you smell the baby and you smell the vernix, and then that smell just went down and burnt his lungs, and he just said, you know, his heart just opened at that moment, and, you know, that was his connection with the baby, and that all came in through that sense of smell. And our sense of smell is just linked to our emotional brain. It bypasses the cognitive thinking brain and goes straight into the emotional brain.
And premature babies are covered in vernix. They have a lot of vernix around. And the other thing with the smell is that smell is the same to like the baby to the breast, smells the same as amniotic fluid to them in the studies that have been done. So it's kind of like that's home, and then if you put them here, that's their second home. Can I mention a study about Niels Bergman's doing worldwide on a for premature babies? So there's a worldwide there's a study going on now in 8 hospitals. Now Niels Bergman is basically probably the world's leader on skin-to-skin nurturing. I was very fortunate to go and listen to him a couple of years ago when he came to New Zealand. And the study's called the Epistos study. Basically, it's immediate parent skin-to-skin for babies. These are babies that are 1,000 grams to 1,800 grams. So we're talking 26 weeks to sort of maybe 34 weeks. And there's 8 hospitals in the world, 5,000 babies they're looking to enroll, and 4,000 of those babies will have 0 separation. They will be all in neonatal care, will be done on the mother or 2 others. So the baby is not separated from one of those 3 people at any time. So all in neonatal care. And they're going to be following them up. They're looking at them for 2 years. And if the studies are looking really good there, they're going to follow them up for 30 years. So a longitudinal study. And it'll be very interesting to see. World Health Organization's involved in this as well. In this study. It'll be a beautiful study to be a part of.
Exactly. Which, you know, kind of is almost the opposite experience of what we've seen with the ACE studies. You know, it's
and what will we see?
Yes, and what will we see? Going back to studies, at the World 9/11, they are still studying those children now who were in utero at the time of 9/11. So you can Google that and, you know, have a look and see what they're doing with that. So, but I think this is a good time to talk about adverse childhood experience studies. So, Sonja, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, because it's the focus of this webinar is on mental health issues within children. And what we're also now looking at in terms of addiction, and Sharon's already mentioned this guy's name. I say Gabor Mate, but Gabor Mate, he's a world leader and addiction specialist in helping people overcome addiction. And what he's discovered is the leading cause of addiction is it's not a behavioral trigger, but it's actually what he calls adverse childhood experiences. Now, for many people, and I don't know if you saw it, Gaylene, but on Monday night on The Project, so last night there's a show here called The Project, they actually did a coverage of addictions, and I'm really gutted I didn't get to see it, so I'm going to watch it and recover. But I'm thinking they probably didn't even mention this, because this research is really new, and understanding that an adverse child experience is anything that is perceived by the child as being feeling unsafe, unsupported, isolated, dramatic, what we identify as being a trauma. And it's not based on what we as adults perceive as adverse childhood experience. This is what the child themselves perceive. And so when you start to break that down, and the reason I mentioned what was on the project last night is I heard on the ad that they were saying in this ad that pretty much everyone has some sort of addiction in some degree.
Yeah.
And that makes total sense, because an adverse childhood experience could be something, and I'm not going to play down by saying simple, but it is simply something like your parents argued a lot about money.
Yes.
You don't know that their arguing about money is anything other than them arguing about money. And again, like we've already mentioned, it's what you make it mean. And so now we are seeing, when you're peeling back addiction, the first thing you do is don't look at the symptom, which is the addiction. Behavior modification works to a degree, absolutely. What has happened to you in your childhood? What has happened to you to lead you? Because all an addiction is something that activates the pleasure part of the brain and gives us some sort of a soothing response or allows us to feel good for a temporary period of time.
Yeah.
In order to make up for an experience where we didn't feel good. Exactly. And at the time that the addiction starts, we're usually in a state of anxiety or stress or panic. And then we discover this addiction. It can be anything from skin picking to shopping, gambling, chocolate, food. And in that moment, we have that reprieve. I felt good for that moment. Why do you need to feel good in that moment? What's happened in your past?
Exactly. And when you bring that back to children, the what so many parents are reporting now is the cutting.
That's a huge one.
Cutting of the skin, eating disorders. Again, that's an addiction. The computer game addiction. It's just, and you're getting that. Yeah, you're getting that. And what Dr. Gabor was talking about is like, no child whatsoever should ever be allowed on the internet until their brain has completely formed, until they're like, older teenagers. He's saying, yeah, so they're 25. He said the internet is actually designed for adults who have already formed a lot of their brain, of course. And, we're also seeing that adults are now getting their brain is changing when, they get addicted to porn, for instance, so we're not going to go into that, but there's some great stuff on YouTube about how, that changes the brain. It changes your pleasure centers watching all this violent pornography. Anyway, so it's not just about the addiction. So the adverse childhood, the adverse childhood study showed that if you there's a number of questions. So I've actually given you a link, magicalnewbeginnings.com/ACEs, where you can go and you can watch my video presentation, not just on ACEs, but I've also put together some baby ACEs with the help of Kate White and Marty Glenn from APA, where you go through and you give yourself a score. So and the questions are like, did you ever witness your father hitting your mother? You talked a little bit about arguing and stuff. Was there a death in the family? Was one of your parents incarcerated, put in prison? Lots of different scenarios, 10 different questions. And then depending on how high you score on that will either double, triple, quadruple your chances of having physical conditions such as cancer and heart disease, or suicidal tendencies or depression. I'm not going to go too much into it because there's a whole hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of webinar on that link. And for those watching the recording, then the link will be here and also on the YouTube channel description. But it's not taking into account what's happening to the baby. So I'm really excited about hearing that study you're talking about, Gaylene, because it means that people are now becoming aware that actually what happens in utero and at birth and how we're treated and how we're connected or disconnected and separated from what's going on. And of course trauma creates separation too, so we can be physically with somebody, but if we are in a traumatized state, we're still feeling isolated and alone. So that's all quite it's so much that we could speak about there, but I'm just seeing this time and time again. And I know, you know, we've been talking amongst ourselves with our clients is, you know, the first thing, you know, the baby's not sleeping, or you know, there's a lot of trauma crying going on with the babies, and it's like, or as children, they're behaving in an angry way, frustrated way, and you just ask the question, how was the birth? And you see the mum sort of computing, well, why are they asking this? But actually it was a very traumatic time. And, you know, the more trauma, I mean, you know, children or mothers I've worked with whose children have had to be resuscitated a couple of times, you know, their level of what they're experiencing is quite often a physical condition such as epilepsy. Yep. So all of this, you know, the more trauma we experienced early life, I think the more the expression comes out in the child, whether it is just, I say just anxiety, that is not what I mean at all, because that is very debilitating for people, but it can be depression, it can be suicidal thoughts, it can be, you know, even just feeling so withdrawn that you end up being bullied at school. Not being able to make that connection, and it all spirals, I believe, from these early traumas.
Yeah, but the good news is, shall we just add at that point,
yeah,
that we have amazing tools now, unfortunately, with your work, Sharon, that can potentially address these issues very quickly if we get onto it quickly enough. And you know, I'm sure some people would probably sit in here right now thinking, well, my child's only 5 years old, how do I help them? Well, the best thing about that is we can work through the mother, we can work through the father, and I myself, and I'm sure you have, Gaylene, as well, and Sharon obviously, I've worked already so many mothers on addressing childhood behaviours and issues and disconnection, or etc., through the mother, and seeing results, you know, almost immediately in terms of the child's ability to connect, or how they're responding to their environment, with mum giving instructions. Because if mum's feeling calmer and they're able to address their child's behaviour in a calmer way, that affects the child. Yet also, because we've done the work on the actual trauma itself of the birth or the in utero, then because we're all energetically connected, that's going to affect the child. So if you're thinking, oh, my child's too young, or how can I help, then that is how. You don't have to wait till they're, you know, teenagers and etc. There's a faster, quicker ways now with matrix birth reimprinting.
That connection with the baby. Recently, well, a while ago, I had a little one. We were still helping a little bit with her breathing, a newborn baby, and little one hadn't opened her eyes yet. She was just needing some more support with her breathing. And when mum was guided in to tune in, to close her eyes and tune in through her heart to her baby opened her eyes within seconds.
The heart resonance stuff is huge.
The heart resonance stuff, yes.
Yeah.
So tuning in, so mum can tune in during pregnancy. We can do it through matrix. We can do it afterwards. Tuning in energetically. If you're a mum and your baby is in a unit, an neonatal unit, and you're separated from your baby, or you can tune into them energetically. And we know that this travels through time, through space. We know that it affects the person who is, they feel it, we feel it. We can do this surrogately.
Yes.
It travels through time and space. Yeah. And if we're going back into something, our subconscious brain doesn't know the difference between the past and the future. It's all now.
Yeah.
Time and space become irrelevant.
The Heart Math Institute have done some wonderful studies around this, and still doing wonderful studies around this. But just a couple of stories, and one that's, you know, there in Australia, next door to where you guys are in New Zealand, is the lady who, when her baby was born, the baby had stopped breathing. And again, if you're feeling slightly triggered, then just tap with this one. And the doctors tried really hard to resuscitate this baby. They couldn't resuscitate the baby, so they put the baby on mum's chest and just said, you know, this is your time, you know, for mum and dad to say goodbye to the baby. And every now and again the baby would do a little gasp, and mum would say, but I think my baby's alive. And they would check and they say, no, you know, your baby's gone. And after about 20 minutes or so, the baby did start to breathe again, and the heart did start to come back and to start
Find its
going.
rhythm.
And it was, it was because it was on mum's chest. It was connected to mum. Mum's heart cells were in training with baby's heart cells. So while the baby's in the womb, the mother's heart and the baby's heart are very much in train together. And, you know, that's such a beautiful story. Again, you can research that one. I haven't got it to pop in a link here, but I can put it on the Facebook page. And there's, you know, it works the other way around as well, where a baby's actually been put on mum's chest who's in a coma. And the baby has, you know, the mum's come out of the coma because she's had some time with the baby on her chest too. So, you know, the heart is so powerful, and there's actually a whole chapter about this in my book too. The other thing that I wanted to share with people is about the autonomic nervous system, and we're kind of running out of time here now, so I'm just going to mention it very quickly. Is that Stephen Porges has done a study on our autonomic nervous system, and what he's found is that there's 3 different systems within our body, and you'll see the picture on the link that I'm about to post in for the group here as well. Is that we have what is called a social, which the nervous system comes around the face and it goes down into the heart and it goes down into the back, but it doesn't go anywhere else. Then we have the sympathetic and parasympathetic. It goes down the back, and the other one goes to all the organs. And this is our fight, flight, freeze, or thrive growth system. So if we're triggered into freeze by any point of trauma, or that feeling that we have to defend ourselves or flee or to run away, then the autonomic nervous system enables us to do that. But also when we're feeling safe, the autonomic nervous system then, I can't even think about the right word at the moment, but, you know, not shuts down, but it then switches into thriving, into growth, into repair. So when we're feeling safe, we go into repair. When we're feeling under threat, we go into survival, which releases a lot of adrenaline, and we want to run away. Now, the one that he's developed or discovered that's so important is the social one. Now, we all read each other's faces, whether we are aware of it or not. I'm looking at Sonja now, and she's nodding her head. I'm looking at Gaylene. I'm making that eye contact, and I'm reading these people. I'm not doing it consciously, but I'm you know, and we do this when we're teaching. We do this when we're working with our clients. We do this with our parents. We do this with our children. And as children, you'll notice that, you know, when the child's first starting to walk, they'll look back at mum. Am I safe? Am I not safe with what I'm doing? And if mum's all smiley, then the baby carries on what they're doing, carries on crawling towards the danger thing. But if mum's going, you know, because they're about to fall into a swimming pool or something, then that also, baby realizes that there's immense danger. Now, even I think the premature babies, once they've got their eyesight, they are constantly reading faces, not just of their mums, but of the nurses as well. I mean, we all do this naturally. When we look at a baby, we smile because we want the baby to smile back. We want the baby to feel safe. It's a natural thing we do. But if you've got a traumatized mum who's unable to smile, she's just so traumatized, then the baby is not getting that feedback from mum. You know, it's constantly checking in. Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Or you have a mother, and I've left my mobile phone here for this reason, is who's constantly, you know, breast or feeding like this and changing like this and paying no attention to her baby because she's so addicted to what's going on her phone. And, you know, a lot of teenagers now are completely, you know, and adults too, you know, I own up to being that as well. You know, even my cats will be prodding me and going, put the technology down, mother, and pay attention to me. But babies are not getting that reassurance. So what happens if they don't get that reassurance, if they don't learn that reassurance, the social nervous system kind of shuts down and they no longer are able to use this. And I believe this is what happens with autistic children as well, is there's something happens with that ability to read faces, to read body cues, to see what's going on in the world, because you'll hear a lot of autistic children won't do eye contact. So they're not picking up, they're not developing that ability, and that social autonomic system is the first thing that we go to. And if we shut that down, then we immediately just go straight into the fight, flight, or freeze. Yeah, so we're missing a crucial part of soothing our babies. So having babies with you, you know, when they're crying, when they're upset, even when they're happy, you know, they are constantly reading your expressions as well as your energy. So so anyway, there's a whole webinar about that too, so I've popped that in for everybody there so they can go and listen to that too. So just some extra information there.
It's a huge topic, isn't it?
It is massive. And, yeah,
huge topic.
Yeah, but I just want to add, I know we're talking about children here, but you know, in 2011 I taught a matrix birth imprinting workshop in Florida. One of the ladies that I taught went off and worked with a man who had been on major psychotic drugs for 20 odd years, and with severe anxiety. And she, in one session, she worked with him, and it went back to his birth when he was born with the cord around his neck. And by releasing the shock and the trauma and helping his younger self realize that he survived, that this, you know, this wasn't that he wasn't going to die in this moment, he was able then to carry on working with his doctor and come off of all his meds, you know. And that was massive. That was one session. I mean, that doesn't always happen. We're not always lucky to have those one session wonders, but it's so important. And that's not to say that every baby that was born with a cord around their neck is going to experience that, because it depends on whether, a lot of babies are born, as Gaylene will tell you, with the cords around their neck, and it just doesn't get to the point where it's tight. If babies play with the cord in the womb anyway, so it's a part of them, is an extra limb to them. But if it gets tight and it then causes, you know, them to asphyxiation, and not that the baby's breathing, but they feel like they're being strangled and they can't move forward and they're trapped, then this is going to affect children. You know, that there's going to be that anxiety. They've had this massive survival trauma going on, and if you can, as we've said, we work with mums as soon as we can after a big trauma like that's happened. The earlier you can get it, I think the quicker the results. But also know that working with mothers of older children, and even working on our own birth experience as adults, you can have profound changes in your perception of life. And you know, many of those I've shared in my book. But since writing my book in 2015, you know, we've all got more and more stories of, you know, helping mother achieve wonderful birth, because we've healed all their birth traumas. So yeah, it's just a massive topic that we could talk a lot about. So,
and just can we just add, people, the first thing is, I don't remember my birth. You never forget. You don't remember consciously, but you do remember physiologically. And that's how we work with people, to help them find if there's a connection.
You know, many 3-year-olds will recount their birth stories.
Oh yeah.
You know, I know we covered this in the other webinar, but you know, you ask it, there's so many, you know, there was actually one post on Facebook, and it just went on and on and on, where women were going, oh yeah, my 3-year-old, or my 3.5-year-old. It's like when you get to kind of 4 and 5, then you start to forget. It's like, you know, so many things happened in our childhood, you know, day to day going to school, we don't remember, but we remember the big traumas that happened at school. And even as adults, I mean, there's so much of my adulthood I don't remember either, because it was just the same. There was no big defining moment. but birth is a big defining moment, and we store this energetically within our body, and
Yeah.
how we tune into it. We use that body feeling, that body memory that we have. We tune into the energy of it, and I always describe it as being like a little icon on your desktop computer. You know, you double click on it and it opens up with all this information that you may have forgotten was already there.
Yeah, I forgot about that app.
Yeah.
Was that what it does?
Yeah, computers are such a brilliant analogy of how.
Yeah, all the time. Great analogy. Yeah. What's your programming?
Yeah.
You want a different program, you're going to put some different information in there. What a different output.
Absolutely. So
Yes.
empty the recycle bin first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get rid of those old outdated programs that are no longer working, and I will upgrade them, update them. So
Yeah.
And then feel them through your body, so you get the body experience as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're going to pause speaking now. So if anybody has any questions about anything that we've spoken about, I know we fitted a lot in that hour, and we've kind of had quite a few different areas we've spoken to, but I hope we've just given you a flavour of A, what's possible, and B, some understanding of why maybe children are acting in the way they are. Of course, it's always a holistic thing as well. You know, there's a lot of information coming out about the gut biome now, and how that relates to how we're thinking, and if mum's got low gut flora, then the baby's gonna have, you know, issues too. So it is a holistic thing, but these gut biomes are actually they're the little bacterias and things they have their own little consciousnesses as well, you know, which may be a little bit way out for people. So, and they thrive, or they fail to thrive in the environment that they're living in. So if we're highly stressed, then the bad bacteria are going to have a party. The bad bacteria that grow and thrive and eat all the adrenaline and you know, thrive in that situation, so they're going to thrive in that situation, and the good bacteria are going to not thrive. And if we can come to a place where we're not feeling, you know, we're feeling safe in the world, then that also means that, you know, everything that happens in our body can actually go into growth and repair. Cool.
Yes.
And I know I don't need to be telling you guys that because of your mental health training, but
yeah.
Cool. So any questions by anybody? Anything, any comments you'd like to have? We'll also put a link to the previous webinar that we've done here, because, you know, there's a lot of areas that we haven't covered here. And we're going to be doing some more webinars together in the future, talking about infertility, postnatal depression, and everything else really. That,
I think that'll be our next one, I think, won't it? It'll be something around the fertility issues and conception and what's required. And also, can I just add that if you are interested in exploring birth experiences and trauma, either for yourself, because we've all been born, or your children as a father or a mother, Gaylene, myself and Sharon are all trained. We are all trained in matrix birth reimprinting. We work online, so if you are in a small town somewhere, it's no excuse. We are, you know, capable of working with you anywhere in the world. So Sharon will share our websites or pages, Facebook pages, for you to access us and connect with us if that's what you want to do, because we're really passionate. And I know myself, and I'm sure Gaylene's the same, that I'd say 80% of my clients now, 4 out of 5, we do some sort of birth healing. Yeah, it's just there. It just comes up every time now. So exciting. Go back to the root cause of it and you're going to heal a lot quicker.
I know.
We've got a question.
Sue Ann saying, love this webinar, thank you, has opened up a whole new world for me, which is, yay, we're going to celebrate, because that's what we want to do. We want to open up a whole new world for people to just start the conversation. You know, just to start opening up and realizing just how important this time is. So Gaylene, you also work with clients in amongst being a very busy neonatal nurse too. So how can people contact you if they would like to come and work with you with your gentle energy?
Thank you. So I have a website, nurturingnaturally.nz. So www.nurturingnaturally.nz. We'll put it at the bottom of this as well.
We will. Thank you. It's just always good if people are just listening to the audio or Sonja, how do they contact you?
Sonja, good. I'm glad you said Sonja, because people type in a Y and they can't find me. I'm just under my own business. My business name's me, Sonja Courtis, Sonja. Courtis is court, as in tennis court, is. So IS, COURTIS.com. Simple as. You find me on Facebook, find me on the web.
Awesome. So Sharon King, magicalnewbeginnings.com, and also healyourbirthbook.com as well if you want to find out more about my book. Then it's also available on Amazon, and it's now available in German. Yes. And yes, and soon to be Bulgaria and South Korea and I'm not going to say until the deal's done.
Okay. It's a brilliant book. Heal Your Birth, Heal Your Life, people. Please read it. It is phenomenal.
It is a brilliant book.
Yeah. And if you're in Christchurch, you can get it at Scorpio Books, because I've had the manager there order it in.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Oh, hi, Adam.
So Christine is saying, thanks a lot for this webinar. Although the topic was not new to me at all, you have given me much additional information. While listening, I've made a list of new things to look into around my own birth and that of my daughter. Awesome. Renara saying, really enjoyed this, lots of new stuff, which I love. Super energy between you three. Yay. And that's, this is what we want to do. We want to bring you new stuff. A lot of the stuff you can find in my book or on my trainings, but now it's time to go forward with the new stuff. Adam, I can't even pronounce what you've said there. Good. Oh, okay, so he's talking in German. Now I've got it. Okay, very good. I think that translates too. So thank you, Adam. Connie saying, thank you, ladies. Terrific topic and really well presented. And Adam saying, thank you all for sharing your magical energy and epic learnings. You're very welcome. And as you know very well, Adam, that all three of us could probably talk so much more, and we will do in the future on various different topics, all relating around pregnancy and birth.
Yeah.
But for now, just thank you for joining us. The replay of this will be on YouTube, and those of you who have registered, we'll just send that out to you in an email as well. So watch out for an email from Sharon at magicalnewbeginnings.com, and we'll let you know when we have the next webinar.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for your time, Sharon and Gaylene.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So thank you, beautiful ladies, for joining me. Thank you, Sheila.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in. We really appreciate it.
Okay, so enjoy the rest of the day or evening, depending on which part of the world you're in.
Freezing Christchurch. It's cold.
And really hot England.
I know, you've had an amazing summer.
It's cool here too.
Awesome. Okay, everybody, take care. And,
thank you.
Look forward to speaking.
See you.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Bye.